Chapter 2: Shadows in the Undergrowth. The woods felt wrong, not just quiet, hushed, like something heavy pressed against the trees, flattening sound, smothering the wind. Shadows stretched long across the leaf-littered floor as the sun sagged low behind the hills. The light here didn't fade so much as bleed out, slow and reluctant. Elli crouched beside a gouge in the dirt, her hand resting just above the disturbed soil. A print. Deep, heavy tread. A scuff to the left where someone slipped. "Still moving fast," she murmured. Her voice barely rose above the rustle of the forest. Oakley stood behind her, scanning the tree line with his hand on the hilt of his blade. His armor was already dusted with grit, damp with sweat. A sheen of dirt clung to his jaw. The edge in his stance hadn't softened since they left Micky's last known point. He hadn't spoken much since either. "How many?" he asked. Elli rose, brushing her hand on her thigh. 7. Maybe 8. Raiders. Same pattern as before. Oakley didn't respond, just nodded once and started moving. They followed in silence. No birdsong now, just the sound of boots in soil and breath in lungs. This forest had seen death. You could feel it. Trees thick as towers loomed overhead, bark carved with age and black scars. Roots twisted like grasping fingers across the trail. Here and there, something glinted in the underbrush. A shattered visor, the hilt of a buried blade, rusted metal long forgotten. The raiders had left a trail, but not a careless one. These were men who moved like ghosts, who knew how to disappear when they wanted. But they weren't hiding. They were chasing something. Heading toward Ryder. Elli spotted a torn strip of cloth tangled in thorns, dried blood dark at the edges. She didn't mention it, just pushed forward. By the time the light began to die completely, the forest had turned hostile. Cold crept in. Mist curled between the trees like smoke from unseen fires. The shadows thickened until they felt alive. "We need to stop," Oakley said finally. His voice was low, cautious. Elli scanned the gloom, jaw tight. "Not here." They pressed on another half-mile before finding it, what was left of an old ranger's shelter, half buried in the rise of a hill. The roof sagged under rot, moss clung to the walls, the door was gone but inside was dry and hidden. It would have to do. The floor was damp and uneven. A broken cot leaned against one wall, black with mildew. Rodent bones littered the corners, cracked and hollow. Elli slid her pack down and knelt near the back, listening. Oakley took first watch, leaning in the doorway like a gargoyle. Sword across his knees. The moon hadn't risen yet, but the stars blinked through the treetops, pale and uncertain. Time dragged. Then came the scream. Not a woman's, not a man's, something else, thin and sharp and full of wrongness, like something being pulled inside out. Oakley tensed, didn't speak. Another scream, closer, wet, choked off. Then came the sound of them. Howls, dozens. Some high, others deep, all echoing like they were coming through water. Branches cracked in the distance, leaves shuddered in waves. Something big moved through the dark, circling. Elli's breath caught. She crept to the doorway beside Oakley and stared into the black. Nothing moved, but the sound hadn't stopped. Roars, shrieks, the dull thud of something heavy hitting flesh. A low, gurgling laugh drifted through the trees. It wasn't human. Far off, firelight flickered for a second, then vanished. The raiders weren't hunting anymore. They were being hunted. Oakley didn't say a word, neither did Elli. There was nothing to say. Not tonight. The morning dragged itself over the trees like a dying breath. Mist clung low to the ground, thick and reluctant to lift, as if mourning what the night had taken. Elli moved like a shadow through it, crouched and slow, her spear gliding along the undergrowth. Oakley followed several paces back, eyes scanning the fog like a wolf waiting for movement. No birds sang. The forest held its breath. They'd picked up the raiders' trail just after dawn, disturbed moss, a broken length of branch, a torn scrap of cloth that fluttered like a warning flag. It was subtle, but enough. Elli's instincts, sharpened by years of watching death creep in from the dark, told her they weren't far behind. But something was wrong. The trail stuttered. At times, it looked like the raiders had veered wildly, doubling back or splitting off, like panic had driven them instead of purpose. "Something spooked them," Elli whispered without turning. Oakley didn't answer. He didn't need to. His sword was already in hand. The sun, weak and colorless, filtered through the tall ruins ahead, columns strangled in vines, their broken tops barely visible through the mist. Nature had swallowed whatever this place had once been. They passed beneath the cracked archways in silence, boots muffled by moss, until the tracks became chaotic. Scattered prints, long drag marks, blood sprayed like a fan across the ferns. Then the stench hit. They found the first body face down in a shallow stream, its arm half torn off, and the back of the skull crushed. Another lay twisted near a fallen log, entrails trailing behind like a grotesque red rope. "Day demons didn't do this," Oakley said quietly. "No," Elli murmured. "Too much force, too much precision." They moved slower now, as if sound alone might wake the thing that did this. Trees creaked, leaves fell. The world was hushed. Eventually, the trail led them to a small clearing. There, against the base of a massive tree, slumped a figure in cracked leather armor, chest heaving in short, rattled breaths. One leg was bent wrong, bone piercing through flesh. Blood soaked the ground beneath him, turning the roots dark. His head lolled forward, but he was still alive. At his side lay the corpse of a night demon. Its black skin was torn open, ribs cracked from some brutal impact, and the pulsing blue spot on its chest had been pierced with what looked like a broken piece of a steel pole. The eyes were open, glassy, lifeless. Even in death, it looked ready to kill. The man groaned, his voice little more than a gargle. Elli stepped forward, her face hard. "What happened?" He looked up at her slowly, lips trembling, blood bubbling between his teeth. It came out of nowhere," he choked. "We didn't hear it, just screaming. Then shadows. It tore through us like we were nothing." Oakley moved to stand beside Elli, eyes on the dead creature. The raider coughed, and a line of red ran down his chin. "It wasn't hunting. It was chasing something. It didn't even stop for us at first, like we were in the way." His fingers trembled, trying to grip something in the dirt. Elli crouched in front of him, voice like cold iron. "Where were you going?" The man's eyes rolled back. His chest rattled once, twice. Then he was still. Silence returned to the clearing. Oakley scanned the trees. "If that wasn't the only one, we'll need to move before dark." Elli stood slowly, casting one last glance at the demon's corpse. "It wasn't hunting them," she echoed, a whisper to herself. "It was chasing." She didn't say what they were both thinking. Something had stirred the night, and whatever it was ahead of them.